And there we go, everyone. We are back again for another fantastic conversation on Friday Night Counter Attack. And if this year's taught me anything, I've learned so much in terms of working in the football media so far, but I've learned more so that it takes very nice people and very good people to have. You have to stick close to them. You have to work with them well, and you appreciate them for what they have done for you and how they've helped you. And none more so than my two co-hosts today. I'm joined by Travis as always. So Travis has got some very important news to tell us before we start our podcast as well. So he'll tell us that in a second. But yeah, Travis, how are you doing today? Are you well today?
Yeah, not too bad. Very busy with work, ramping up for the start of September, but yeah, enjoying life at the moment.
Nicely done. And my second favorite person from this year in 2023 for Friday Night Counter Attack is Sara Poraria. So Sara is back from working at Room 442 in Canada. She's here working with us this season, and we've been thrilled working with her as well. None more so than my family, who are like, why don't you just give her the keys to your kingdom and she'll take it far? And I'm just there like, oh my God. Like, she's great, but like it's a bit too far when people are like, oh, you should just give her the whole podcast and she'll run it. But Sara, it's good to see you again, my friend. How are you doing today?
I'm well, busy in the Canada football world. If you guys didn't hear yesterday, the coach of Canada is now the coach of Toronto FC. I'm based in Toronto. So yesterday we were at the press conference talking to him. It was just insanity. It's never a dull day with Canada soccer, to be honest.
I'm surprised they got rid of him because he was obviously the first in a long time to get Canada to a World Cup finals as well. The first time since 1998, if I remember, which goes to show how well he did for the nation. But Toronto FC have now got a pretty good coach. And where do you think Canada will actually move to in terms of getting a new coach? Could they go for like a Rudy Garcia? Could they go for a Gus Hiddink? Who do you think they would go with, Sarah?
Well, first of all, he actually decided to leave, which goes to show you there's obviously a lot of turmoil going on with that team. Because if, yeah, you're doing well after so long, but then the coach decides to leave, it doesn't look good with the Copa America that Canada are pretty much guaranteed in 2024 in June, and then obviously hosting the World Cup. But I would love for them to get a big international talent. You've mentioned Rudy Garcia. That'd be so exciting. But I think they're going to stay within the Canadian walls because truly they don't have the funds. But honestly, that's the biggest issue. But yeah, they're debating like a CPL coach right now. Like it's grim. It's grim. There's not much else to say.
I mean, with Saudi Arabia, they let one of their international managers goes after the one from the World Cup, and they got Roberto Mancini in as well. So it goes to show that money does talk in certain international stages as well. And I think Rudy Garcia, even though I mentioned him as a name, I think he's now the coach of Napoli as well after replacing Spalletti. So that goes to show how well everyone's kind of moving in this rigmarole in managers as well. But busy times in Canadian football as always, Sarah. But glad to have you on the podcast, and thank you very much for joining us today as well. Before we get straight into this podcast, Travis, you have some news to share about your new footballing position. Let's hear it, my friend.
Yes, I've recently signed up for a program with a company called New Fan, which makes me technically a board member of a non-league club. So the club's called AFC Crew. You can find them on Twitter if anyone's listening wants to check them out. They've had a really good start to the season, to be fair. They were a little bit unlucky this weekend because one of their their opponent for this weekend, who they were supposed to play, unfortunately couldn't fulfill the fixture. So they had to arrange like a last minute friendly against a team in the league above. I'm just trying to check now how they got on. But yeah, it's been a good start to the season for them. I think they won every game except one so far this season, which has been good for them, to be fair, because they've been promoted. They're in a new league this season now as well, so it's all good. Didn't have the best preseason. I think they lost every game in preseason, but coming to the season proper and won all but one. So sitting, I think, third in the table now, although they might be a bit lower now that they've missed a fixture. But yeah, it's looking good. It's quite a cool project. Excited to be a part of it, to be fair.
And this is where you're going to turn into their version of Todd Bowley and be spending millions and millions of pounds in non-league football, saving them and getting them promoted year in, year out, like the Ryan Reynolds story on on Disney Plus story with Wrexham.
So yeah, if I had the money, I'd I'd love to, but yeah, it's not quite got the Todd Bowley billions, unfortunately.
Not yet, but congratulations.
Not yet, yeah.
Yeah, one day.
Soon. Maybe we'll get some more sponsors for our podcast and then they'll go straight to AFC Crew, which would be insane. But no, congratulations on that, Travis. I'm looking forward to hearing your stories as a board member of a football club, which is really cool to hear as well. But we are starting off the podcast this week on a very... It's quite a fun topic for us to talk about. I mean, we've got Sara here, who's a La Liga specialist, being a Barcelona fan. So we thought, why not talk to Sara about her favourite rival in world football, Real Madrid, and their new signing, Jude Bellingham. And Jude Bellingham has started off the season in such a fantastic feeling for Real Madrid, but it seems like it's normal for him because we've seen that at Borussia Dortmund, but he's now playing more as a number 10 in a 4-4-2 diamond at the head of the 10, allowing his freedom and his creativity to flourish. And we've seen how he scored 4 goals in 3 games and is the first player to score in the first 3 games of La Liga since Cristiano Ronaldo for Real Madrid back in 2009. And it's still his debut season. And they obviously spent £105 million on Jude Bellingham. Sara, I'm going to bring you in for this one to begin with. As a Barcelona fan, is it scary to see how Jude Bellingham's only just begun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Let me hear your thoughts on that.
It's shocking. It is. Of course, it's terrifying. Like you mentioned, 4 goals in 3 matches. He's starting off so strong. We obviously know that, I mean, there was an issue with Vinny and Ancelotti allegedly a couple of weeks ago. So he's really stepping up to the plate more and more. And as you said, that number 10 position seems to be fitting really well for him. He not only is able to score, but he can also create so many opportunities if you're playing Rodrigo and Vinny on the flank. So I mean, it's incredible. It's really great for Real Madrid. Not so great for me as a Barca fan, but it's always interesting when you see a player fit so well into a club early days, because usually there is a bit of a process for them to get kind of acclimated with the club, right, and the team and their teammates. So it's been fantastic for him.
Yeah, it's unreal to see how Bellingham's gone from England in 2020 playing for Birmingham City in the Championship, the second tier of English football, to then go to Borussia Dortmund, one of the top teams in German football, to then go to Real Madrid, all within the space of 3 years. And Travis, I wanted to kind of ask you as well, with this 4-4-2 diamond, obviously Real Madrid are lacking a certain number 9 up front. Karim Benzema's no longer there. Rumours of him potentially wanting to move back and leave Saudi Arabia already. There's always talks of Kylian Mbappe, as we know, but with Vinicius Jr. injured for the foreseeable future for Real Madrid, is this where we're going to see Jude Bellingham shine? Because he's going to have to be the main man. He's going to have to take leadership like he did do when Marco Reus was injured for quite a few times at Borussia Dortmund, like Jadon Sancho when Haaland left from Borussia Dortmund. Is this where we're going to see Jadon Sancho thrive under pressure at Real Madrid?
I think so. He seems to be the kind of player that just thrives on responsibility, and the bigger role you give him in a team, the better he ends up being. Like you've just said, when big players have left or been absent from the Borussia Dortmund team while he was there, he picked up the baton and really ran with it. And you can see that right from minute 1, he's doing that at Madrid as well. Like you say, Benzema's gone now. The sort of, iconic marquee player over the last few years, he's gone. Vinicius Jr. looked like he was going to be the guy to replace Benzema as that marquee player. He's injured. So, yeah, Bellingham really has come in and from minute 1 been the number 1 guy. And I think it shows how confident he is that he's gone in and he's taken that legendary number 5 shirt as well. I think everyone thought he was going to go for the number 22. Obviously, his number at his previous clubs. But yeah, it shows how confident he is that he can take a number that, one of the greatest midfielders of all time in Zidane wore so proudly for that club, and, do it justice as well, coming in, scoring 4 goals, getting an assist in the first 3 games. It's going to be scary for everybody else in La Liga this season. I think he's just going to go up a level.
I think with Jude Bellingham, if he wants to change his shirt number against number 9, with the type of goals that he's scoring as well, he's scoring them like he's a Harry Kane, like he's a Benzema, like scoring these flick-ons with his head, and like he's always been a natural finisher, which is crazy. And it goes to show he can really play everywhere. And that's why he wore the number 22 shirt originally. One of his original coaches before playing for Birmingham City says, you can play as a number 10, you can play as a number 8, and you can play as a number 4. And it all added up to Jude Bellingham 22, which made it so much more convenient for Jude Bellingham to wear that. But yeah, number 5 is taking on that big pressure with a big number as well. And Sara, I wanted to ask you, just to conclude on this Jude Bellingham topic, have you ever really seen a young player come in with such confidence and such aura to take someone's iconic number in that same position and succeed? Because it has been a while in La Liga and in general, because we've seen with, unfortunately, Ansu Fati not really doing it to compete against Lionel Messi. We've seen it with Valencia when they tried to replace David Villa, David Silva. They just went down like that as well. But yeah, can you think of anyone in particular that's kind of like almost challenged it? Because when you have such great players like Messi, number 10, Ronaldo, number 7, it's going to be difficult, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's so funny you mentioned Ansu Fati because that was the first person who came to my mind naturally, right? Taking the number 10 of Barcelona and then basically flopping. Unfortunately for him, taking on so many injuries, not really being able to fit back into the lineup. But yeah, I mean, Vinny has number 7. He had an excellent season last year. It's not the same though with Jude Bellingham and how quick the turnover was for sure. And even with, Xavi, Pedri and Gavi, they've now taken on Xavi and Iniesta's numbers, and they're very similar to those kind of players, but it's not been as quick as Bellingham. I can't even think of someone who's, been given such a notorious number for a notorious team and performed at the very beginning at such a high level. It's actually interesting. I really can't think of anyone that's like instant like that.
Yeah, it's true, because I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking, obviously, I think about Manchester United, and Manchester United are just failures at number 7, and now a new number 7, Mason Mount, is now injured for the next 6 weeks. So we haven't really placed. The last time we replaced Ronaldo with a number 7 was Cristiano Ronaldo when he came back for a second time. So it goes to show how some people just can't live up to numbers and expectations and pressure. But it's quite nice to see, and I will include Pedri and Gavi into this because they have shown class and integrity in their gameplay for Barcelona. So full respect to those two, and of course Jude Bellingham as well. But Sara, now it's time to talk about Barcelona and that incredible game, that amazing game against Villarreal away. And you know me, I'm not one of Barcelona's biggest fans, but I'm also not one of Villarreal's biggest fans as well. But that was a class game and a great advert for La Liga, because we've not really been watching La Liga over the last couple of years, but when it's got games like that, they're worth watching. How was that like for you in terms of seeing Xavi's system against Villarreal? How was that for you, Sara?
I mean, it was stressful because they were up and then
welcome to my world as a football fan. Always stressful.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one takeaway from the game was they didn't play the best football, and we're taking on several injuries. You noticed Pedri not being on the pitch, like that was such a massive loss. Obviously, Xavi was sanctioned, so he wasn't, pitch side. Ronald Araujo is out, so several people missing important people. But the fact that they were up 2, went down 3-2, and then came back to win the match, I think that's the biggest takeaway, because you need to have that fight in you. And Barcelona hasn't had that. We've seen in the Champions League, especially, for so many years now. So I'm trying to stay positive about it. But I think it was me and you that were talking about one of the best transfers in La Liga, Alexander Sorloth.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Villarreal snatched him up, and what a player he is. He had a fantastic game. But I mean, it was tough. Lamine Yamal, though.
Talk to me. You predicted his uprising back in July, and I was like, I've not heard of him. We'll see about him later. I mean, we're at later now, Sara. So talk to our audience about how good this boy can be.
I mean, 16 years old. Think about where you were when you were 16. This guy is, starting La Liga games. He nearly scored. He had one off the woodwork that Lewandowski ended up tapping in, but he was arguably Barcelona's best player. And think about who's on the pitch with him. And I'm saying that you have Frankie de Jong, you have Lewandowski, you have Mark ter Stegen. Like, he was fantastic. And I think it's the confidence that Xavi has given him to start matches now. You see that displayed in the way he's playing. He was playing with so much freedom, having so much fun, and the technical skills he has are next to none. I haven't seen a young player perform to this level in a very long time. Very Lionel Messi-esque, where he's...
I was waiting for the name drop. It's a certain Argentine. Oh my goodness.
No, he'll come up again later, I'm sure. But
definitely.
No, just the confidence he has, the way he's playing, that's the things he's doing to these other players, the skills. Like, it is really incredible to see such a young kid. So I'm hoping he stays healthy, because he is arguably going to be such a key for the future of Barcelona. And it's great to see him being added to, that, as I mentioned, Gavi, Pedri, Alejandro Valde, that young crew. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it really is as well. And Travis, just to conclude on this Barcelona topic, they've obviously sold Ousmane Dembele this season as well. This summer's gone to PSG, who we'll talk about later in the podcast. Do you think this is now the time for a lot more of the younger players to shine after some of their big money players that they did spend over the last few years. The Griezmann's has officially left, Coutinho has officially left a couple of seasons ago, and now Ousmane Dembele. Is it now time for Barcelona to go back to their roots of bringing through young players and developing to become superstars, as they naturally have done over the years?
I'd certainly like to see it. I mean, Barca have got one of the most famous academies of all time with La Masia, haven't they?
Yeah.
And I think over the last 10 years or so, it's been a little bit of a sort of like a tap's been shut off. It seems like they used to have, a new young talent every year coming through. And over the last sort of 10 years, it feels like they've had to go elsewhere to buy the big names. They've tried that with Ousmane Dembele. They've tried that with Philippe Coutinho. It's not really worked out. Griezmann's another one as well. Obviously, big money spent and didn't really work. So
Malcolm was another one. Now he's playing in Saudi Arabia.
God, I forgot he ever played for Barca. What a name!
I remember he played for Barca because I went to watch a game for Barcelona against Inter Milan, and he scored. And I'm like, that's Messi's position. Messi's meant to be playing there, and I didn't get to see Messi, but I saw Malcolm score. So yeah, I will always remember Malcolm.
The next best thing.
No,
if it's not Messi, it may as well be Malcolm.
Same letter. The name of their names began with the same letter. It's crazy. But yeah, you're right, I'd say, Travis, and the fact that Pedri's come through, Gavi's come through, Balde's come through, Yamal's coming through now as well. So it's nice to see this refreshing side of Barcelona once again. And Sara, I'm pretty sure you would agree that this would be the way to go. And with Xavi as your coach, can you expect to see more young players coming through this season?
Yeah, I think so. And that's the Barca way, as you guys kind of mentioned, like La Masia is notorious. And this used to be what Barca was all about. And then we had, a couple coaches here and there, Ronald Koeman, who really was it was just the worst time.
He didn't succeed at Everton, so he was never going to succeed at Barcelona.
I hope he doesn't. He has scarred me truly. But yeah, that was at a point when they were just buying players left and right. This was when right before Joan Laporte was kind of taking over. And yeah, these were the Malcolms, these were the Paulinhos. We got a player per season. Like, do you remember who can remember a Barcelona where you're just signing players like that? It was so wrong to see. Like, it didn't make any sense. So yes, hopefully back to our old ways of, bringing the players up from the grassroots. And so far it looks like that's where it's going, and it's great to see.
Yeah, it really is. And it will be a lot more refreshing to see in the Champions League, as we've got the Champions League draw coming tomorrow or the next day, whenever this podcast is coming
tomorrow.
Out.
It'll be 12 my time, which I think will be 5 for you guys, or 6.
Yeah. It'll be fun to see Man United and Barcelona drawn in the same group. It'll be fun to see Arsenal.
Of course. There would be no other way.
It would be no other way. It'll be fun to see Bayern Munich and Arsenal drawn in the same group as well. But it'll be especially fun to see Tottenham not drawn in the Champions League as well.
I didn't see that one.
No, I was waiting for it. I didn't want to say it. I was waiting.
It is a good segue.
Next year.
It is a good segue into Tottenham Hotspur now with Travis. And obviously, you had a really good game against Bournemouth on the weekend. But at the time of recording, yesterday, you lost on penalty shootouts to Fulham in the Carabao Cup. So talk to me about your mixed week so far, Travis, because obviously James Maddison had a blinding game against Bournemouth. And he's someone who's now wearing the number 10 shirt for Tottenham Hotspur, who another famous Englishman once wore for Tottenham Hotspur. How are you finding it with Angeball so far, and how are you finding some of the younger players, Udogie, Sara, coming into this side for you, Tottenham Hotspur?
Yeah, it's been, like you say, a mixed week. Obviously, the Bournemouth game was another great example of
Angeball in full flow. And then we came back down to the crashing reality of the fact that we're Tottenham Hotspur by throwing that away against Fulham last night. So, look, it's one of those. I think last night, I mentioned it to you just before we started recording. Obviously, 9 changes that Ange's had to make. With the way that we play, we can't play the same 11 for every game. It's just not sustainable. There's a lot of running integrated into that system in pretty much every position. So you can't play the same 11. We have to rotate. And with the team that we put out last night, it's the same names letting us down again. Skip, Højbjerg, Sanchez, Davis. It's the same players who haven't been good enough for a good few years. But luckily, this is what Ange is sort of identifying. We've seen a few players start to leave this summer who we've probably needed to get rid of for a while. I think there's going to be a few more departures in the last couple of days, the transfer window.
Fabrizio Romano just reported that you're actually linked with a loan move potentially for Ansu Fati and Clement Longley from Barcelona as well. So that could potentially happen before tomorrow's deadline. What do you think about that, Travis?
I'm torn. I mean, I keep seeing us linked with Brennan Johnson as well, who personally I don't think is good enough for Tottenham. But then I think that we have got Richarlison up front at the moment, and pretty much anyone's better than him. So I'd probably take Johnson. But my feeling is we keep getting linked with wingers. I mean, Brennan Johnson's a right winger. I think Ansu Fati primarily plays on the left. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sara. But I don't think we need a winger. We need a striker, and we don't seem to be interested in one at all. Don't get me wrong, Johnson and Fati are both good players, and I'm sure they'll improve our squad. But we need a striker, and I don't see why we're not going for one. I think Clement Lenglet would make sense. Obviously, he was here on loan last season, and when he played, he was all right, to be fair. I think he's a better option than Davinson Sanchez. I think, obviously, Christian Romero and Mickey van der Ven are going to be our primary go-to centre-backs this season when they're both fit, but Lenglet is a decent backup option. So I don't know. I mean, the last few days is going to be interesting. I think it'll be more outgoings than incomings, but I want to see a striker, really.
There's always Anthony Martial. I keep offering him to you on behalf of Manchester United. You can take him if you want, by all means.
Not if he was the last striker on earth, mate, unfortunately.
It's still better than Richarlison. That's all I'm going to say.
That's a good question to ask to the people. Who would you rather have, Richarlison or Anthony Martial? Oh, my days.
It's like,
who would you not have?
Yeah, it's like trying to ask, out of two guys who you'd rather rob your house. I mean, it's just a difficult question.
I mean, they'd both be on the floor at the beginning. They'd just be like, no, we don't want to walk in. Martial would just be crocked. He'd be in crutches.
Yeah, at least Richarlison's fit most of the time. Yeah, you get about 5 games a season out of Martial at the moment, don't you?
Bench.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like one of those tokens. Or just take a token out like, yeah, that's one of my 13 games of the season done. Got to loan in someone, which is crazy.
Yeah, make him count.
Make it count, and he'll still not do anything in the game, which is embarrassing from Anthony Martial and from Manchester United especially. And speaking of Manchester United, we did have a good comeback after beating Forest 3-2 on the weekend, losing 2-0 within the first 5 minutes of the game. Was quite embarrassing, but realistically speaking, it was kind of down to Bruno Fernandes and how he came back into the game, assisting the second goal for Casemiro, creating the chance for Rashford to set up Christian Eriksen, and obviously scoring the penalty at the end to complete the comeback as well. And we will be talking about Manchester United later on in the podcast in one of our matchday previews. But it's time for this week's Start Bench Sell. And this week, there's been quite a stir. I don't know if you've seen this, Sara, but Kevin De Bruyne has recently rated 3 attacking midfielders in the Premier League in terms of best to worst. So most favoured, least favoured, in terms of Bruno Fernandes, Martin Odegaard, and James Maddison for Tottenham Hotspur. And he's gone for Bruno Fernandes at top as being a creative machine in terms of how much output he's had in the Premier League as well. So our Start Bench Sell this week will be between the main 3, in my opinion, and James Maddison will be also included. So we're going to go for 4 this week. So it's going to be Start 2, Bench 1, and Sell 1. So we've got Bruno Fernandes, we've got Martin Odegaard, Kevin De Bruyne, and for Travis's sake, we've added James Maddison, because I know Travis would have want to do this without James Maddison in. So Travis, as always, my friend, you're starting off with this one. If you had to start 2 in your midfield, bench 1 and sell 1, who would you go for and why?
First of all, I think De Bruyne walks into any team in the world. So I think if anybody wasn't starting him, they'd be a bit of a clown.
Sarah, De Bruyne, is he starting for you?
100%, not even a question.
That's fine. So is that the question for all of us? That's fine with me. So literally now is start, bench, sell.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, De Bruyne is a given. Yeah, so start, bench, sell for the other 3.
Yeah, start, bench, sell, Bruno Fernandes, Martin Odegaard, and James Maddison. Take it away, Travis.
I'm going to jump to the other side of it. I've started with a start with De Bruyne. I'm going to jump to sell now. I'm selling Bruno Fernandes.
No way. Why? Tell me why. Why.
Chaos.
There's a lot of players in the Premier League that I'm not a fan of, and I think I am probably the biggest Bruno Fernandes hater in England.
Oh my
God! I might be the biggest in Canada. So
yeah, well, with a Bruno Fernandes haters team then, because
there's a reason I brought you on, and it wasn't that one. Oh.
I watch him, and what frustrates me so much about Bruno Fernandes is he's clearly such a good player. You look at the Nottingham Forest game at the weekend. Without Bruno, it's an embarrassing home defeat against a relegation candidate. With him, you manage to turn it around out of almost nothing and win the game. But what winds me up is, first of all, personally, I don't think he does that enough in the big games. Where was this performance against Tottenham? Just absolutely missing.
He still created 8 chances in the game.
Yeah, they didn't score any though. And he missed a sitter.
He should have had a penalty after Kuti Romero handballed it and VAR didn't check it.
It came off his head, that did, mate.
That did not come off his head. No way. No way. No way.
The other thing with Bruno is he's such a whinge bag. It winds me up. We've got one in Richarlison, to be fair.
I was going to say, you've had a few whinge bags at Spurs.
The amount that this guy complains, just get on with it. Shut up, get on with it. I'm a big, big hater of Bruno. Not because I don't think he's a good footballer. I think he's terrific. But it's the other stuff with him. It's the not performing in the big games. It's the whining. It's the, let's get it right, diving as well. He throws himself on the floor just as much as Richarlison does. As much as Richarlison does, I will say that. But yeah, Bruno for me is going into the sell column. Partially, to be fair, because of how good the other two options are. But I'm going to go pure bias here and bench Odegaard and start Maddison.
You know how much you have to hate someone when you bench your rival team's player as opposed to a non-rival. That's crazy.
I probably hate Bruno Fernandes more than I hate Arsenal, to be fair. It's a big shout, but it's probably true.
Oh my God, that's being clipped. I swear to God, that's insane. That's crazy. But yeah, Sara, agree or disagree? Where are you going with your start bench sell?
Okay, a bit of a disclaimer, because I think James Maddison is a fantastic player, but I haven't watched him nearly as much as I've watched Bruno Fernandes and Martin Odegaard. Because of that, I'm starting Odegaard all day long. Bruno will get the bench, even though I completely agree. He really ticks me off. He does.
Like Luis Suarez did once before for Liverpool and for Barcelona.
That's fine, but
it's what happens though, isn't it? Sometimes when they're on your team, you love them.
So many people say the same thing, is that he's so talented, but we cannot stand him because he is always crying. And it's not about the diving, because I get it. It's part of the game. Several football players do that. That's fine.
But tactically
you're the captain
smart
of the team, and you're going to act like that. Having this
Harry Kane did that. Harry Kane did that for England, and he did it. Harry Kane did that for Spurs and for England as well.
It's not for me. You would be so much more well-respected as a player if you didn't have that attitude. Get on with the game, play the game, and play the game you play well, because you are a fantastic player. But no, he is insufferable. And then they made him as captain. Oh my goodness. No, absolutely.
Still better than Harry
Worst
Maguire's
captain in Man United history.
Oh my God, it's better than Maguire. It's better than Maguire.
That's true.
But like, we're better than Maguire. Come on now, you can't have a
true.
person back there.
I appreciate that. Thank you. But yeah, talk to me about Martin Odegaard then. Why would you start him ahead of Bruno Fernandes?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like he is such a bright star in the Premier League. Like, we've seen, him kind of hop around a bit, and then once he got to Arsenal, I mean, what a slip from Real Madrid. But he just cemented himself, so quick in that squad, and his vision is impeccable. Like, he just really is able to control that middle. The way he sees things, it's amazing for his age as well. I feel like he plays as if he's like 35 and been playing for ages. Like,
he has been, to be fair. Like you said about Yamal, Odegaard started when he was 15 years old.
I guess that's the thing, right? But it just, like, his maturity is something I really respect about him, to the point where he was made Arsenal captain. Like, to me, I just think he's so underrated too, and also doesn't have an attitude about him. Quiet man on the pitch, shows up, gets the job done. Like,
that's why you see Zinchenko crying more times than not, because Odegaard doesn't speak up a lot for Arsenal.
Listen, maybe, but I just think he's so brilliant. He's so young. The future is his. Captain of Arsenal, coming in second last year in the Prem, like, it's great. Yeah. But like I said, really, I want to make it clear that I think James Maddison is a fantastic player, but I need to watch more of him. And maybe I will, now that he's at Spurs and, Leicester have gone down. Yeah.
Nah, that's fair enough. So start bench sell for me. I'm going to have to sell James Maddison just because... Shock. No, it's not a shock. It's the fact that Martin Odegaard is an amazing player. And I think for the sake of variety, I'm going to back my boy Bruno Fernandes with this one. But don't get me wrong, Martin Odegaard is someone who's helped Norwegian football grow and grow and grow since he's become that 16-year-old playing for Real Madrid, for Vitesse, for Heerenveen, and obviously for Arsenal. He's been amazing in terms of growing Norwegian football. And now with an attack of Odegaard and Erling Haaland, they're going to be looking to compete in potentially for qualifications at the next European Championship. So big shout out to Martin Odegaard. And is one of the few players in the Premier League, when I watch a team objectively, I'll just watch him on the screen and I'll just be like, wow, just watch, enjoy in this era of system players we've seen and we've spoken about all the time. For both of us, we've spoken about it, Sara and I and Travis and I. He is someone who can be a maverick as well in that Arsenal side and shine above the rest. And he has tended to do that for a good couple of years at Arsenal, which is great. But I am going to start Bruno Fernandes, and I'll tell you why. So with Bruno Fernandes, since making his debut at Manchester United in February 2020, no player has scored more or assisted more in different games than Bruno Fernandes, which is insane. And since Bruno Fernandes made his debut as well, no one has created more chances in the league, 277, and across all competitions in 343. He was the second highest assist in the Champions League the last time we're in the Champions League, and he got knocked out in the round of 16. He has created so many chances for Manchester United, and we've not had a proper striker besides that one season of Ronaldo and half a season of Cavani, that it goes to show that he is really frustrated at where he's playing at Manchester United. And I think personally, there could be a big bid in for Bruno Fernandes in a couple of years' time for maybe a Bayern Munich or a Real Madrid, because I don't think we'll be able to keep him for that much longer. 45 goals in the Premier League so far, 34 assists in his 104 and 127 appearances for Manchester United. I think is someone who, I think it's because he's on my team, it's because he's my captain. And when I watch him, I get his frustrations more than most, because his team that he's playing with, he is playing with a bunch of duds, if we're being completely honest. And Travis will know how much I've complained about Anthony, one of our wingers, and how I've been let down by Jadon Sancho in the past as well. We've had Wout Weghorst for 6 months last season. It's the equivalent of when Luke de Jong came to Barcelona, Sara. It literally got a big, tall Dutch striker, Vincent Janssen for Spurs, Travis as well. Just couldn't get the ball in the back of the net. And when you've got a creative force like that in your team, being let down by his teammates, I get why he's frustrated. I get why he complains at the referee. I don't like the dive in. I've never liked diving, but that's unfortunately how the game is. We've seen Harry Kane dive quite a few times for England and for Spurs, and they call it.
Nah, I won't have that.
It's done.
Not a diver. Not true.
He is a diver. He will play for the foul, but because the English media back their English players more than the foreign players, that's how it works. And unfortunately, that's why some people get away with it and some people don't get away with it. But unfortunately,
outside perspective, though, just quickly, because I'm not English, I wouldn't consider Harry Kane a diver.
Thank you, Sara.
You think about certain players. Harry Kane dived? Absolutely. But haven't we all? But would I consider Harry Kane a diver? Absolutely not.
But that's it's just about building your reputation as well. And the media has a big thing to deal with that as well. Because when you see some players, they'll be like, oh, they were smart with the foul. Like when we played against France in the World Cup, they were smart with their fouls. Kylian Mbappe, Dembele, Giroud, they were smart with their fouls. But when it's someone like someone who you're used to seeing, like a Suarez, like a Fernandes,
there's a difference though. There's a difference between outright diving and drawing a foul. And I think Harry Kane, one of his best attributes was drawing fouls and stepping across his man at the right time. Whereas, the players who are more classically labeled as divers, I think actually just throw themselves on the floor. Whereas Kane is more drawing a foul. I don't think he's a diver really, but agree to disagree.
Yeah, agree to disagree. But yeah, my start bench is Bruno Fernandes starting, benching Martin Odegaard, and I'm going to be selling James Maddison. And I think that's probably one of the best ones we've done this season. Thanks to Sara and thanks to Travis for that one as well, which is great. And more to come over the season. It's a nice segment we've got there. But yeah, next segment is Scout Hamz, where I'm going to be talking about one wonder kid across Europe and in the world for the next 60 seconds. And we're actually sticking in England for this one. It's going to be quite easy to talk about our young centre-back to talk about from Bournemouth. So the 20-year-old Ukrainian centre-back, Ilya Zabrany, who played against Tottenham Hotspurs. And he's actually quite good for a 20-year-old. I can't see the game on the weekend. He's got 27 caps for Ukraine. His biggest moment, unfortunately, Sara, came when Ukraine beat Spain in a qualification game as well.
Oh,
and
nice.
Sorry to say that, but yeah, he's a similar player to like Ronald Araujo in a way. From what I've seen, he's got similar traits. He's got a bit of pace about him as well, and he's quite slight, but he can be strong on the ball as well. And we saw that against Tottenham. Unfortunately, he was on the losing side, but it goes to show that there's a big future with this new young Ukrainian centre-back, and there's big promising things. And he's not just a Football Manager player. Do you play Football Manager, Sara, or FIFA or anything like that?
No, I don't. Unfortunately, I don't have a system.
Don't worry. It means you have a life. With me, I just play like FIFA all the time. So unless I'm editing this, I'm playing FIFA, which is not fun for my eyes. But yeah, that's been my Scout Hamz player to watch this week as well. And now we've got another fun topic where we talk about two different Premier League players of the week for Premier League player focus. This is where our video editors suggest one player each to talk about. So we've got two, one from Arsenal and one from Brighton. And I think we'll start with the one from Brighton. So I'm going to be talking about Pervis Estupiñán, one of the best left backs in the Premier League so far this season. He probably has been for the last 6 months or so as well. Manchester United are short of a left-back crisis with Luke Shaw and Tyrone Malacia both out injured until November, respectively. And Erik ten Hag is looking at loaning in a left-back. And because we haven't sold many players this summer, instead of going for someone like a Balde or someone like an Alphonso Davies, it could be the time to go for like a Pervis Estupiñán for a deadline day deal. But Travis, I wanted to ask your thoughts on Estupiñán as well. How impressed have you been with the Brighton left back coming into the Premier League over the last couple of years and making it his own, really, that left back position, pushing out Marc Cucurella to Chelsea?
I think he's part of this weird, almost voodoo Brighton team where they seem to be able to just spawn a replacement world-class player for the world-class players they keep selling. It's really strange. I think last season when Cucurella left, everyone was worried that it was going to be sort of the beginning of the downfall of Brighton, obviously with Potter going as well. And he's come in, and to be fair, he's getting a bit more attention this season. But even last season, he was really good. And I've been keeping a bit of a closer eye on him this season because my best mate's got him in his FPL team. So I keep sort of keeping an eye on how he's doing week by week. And yeah, he's had a fantastic start to the season. You mentioned Man United having this crisis at left back at the moment, and I think if they went for him, it's going to take another ridiculous sort of 60, 70, 80 million pound bid to get him out of Brighton at the back end of the season. But yeah, what a start he's had. He's been unbelievable.
Yeah, because with Estupiñán as well, it's one of those moments when I'm looking at some of these players, and I kind of noticed them personally in the World Cup. And Sara, when you see some players in the World Cup back in Qatar in 2022, you normally like, oh yeah, they were good for their country, but they won't continue that form in their domestic league, or we won't see much of them later on. But for Estupiñán, he was someone who kind of shone in that group stage with Qatar and with the Netherlands, respectively. I forgot who the other team was, forgive me. But then he came back to the Premier League and continued on his journey, playing really good football. Do you know much about Estupiñán? Have you been watching a lot of Brighton so far?
I know him from Ecuador.
Yeah.
Like, he's fantastic. Him and Caicedo, it's so funny how they're obviously national team players and then what they've done for Brighton. But they've been a package for so long until, recently. Of course, Caicedo gone to Chelsea now, but they're fantastic. And Ecuador had a good World Cup, regardless of, the fact that they didn't go through. That Group A was tight, and it was in my opinion, I had them going through. They should have gone, and it was just unfortunate. But they play really good football, and they're only getting better. In fact, in the Copa America, I think Ecuador is going to be one of the top teams competing. Like, they're really good. So he's come up through that, playing with maybe the best Ecuadorian team we've seen in decades. And yeah, with Brighton, De Zerbi ball. It works. I don't know what keeps happening, but it's working.
I've described it as Moneyball, Brad Pitt, 2011 film when it came out. It's just, you're bringing in new, amazing film. I keep seeing clips on that on my social media, clearly because I'm talking about it a lot. Instagram is listening to me, unfortunately. But yeah, that Moneyball film is a great example of what's happening at Brighton. And when you're seeing some of these players, and you would know as well as I would, Sara, that the fact that when you're trying to scout for players, a lot of European teams will scout within Europe, but when you're scouting outside of Europe, or you're scouting at some of the lower leagues within Europe or not so recognized, and you get these gems, you appreciate them a lot more, and you get to see them kind of shine in their element. And that's what we've seen with Roberto De Zerbi's football at Brighton. And what have you kind of made of it with Roberto De Zerbi's football at Brighton so far, Sara?
I mean, it's been incredible. I think we were all a bit shocked. What was it, last October?
Yeah.
When Graham Potter left to go to Chelsea, because he was fantastic with Brighton, and we thought, oh, all right, here we go. That team that could maybe make that push for European football. Oh no, it's not going to happen now. De Zerbi comes in, arguably, plays better football than Graham Potter with this team. I mean, it was fantastic. Brighton were in my opinion, one of the most exciting clubs to watch in the Prem last season. Now, granted, they've lost several players since, McAllister, Caicedo, but I still think that they're still pushing on. They're still, trying to replace their players, and they're still playing really exciting football. Bit of a slump, though, and weirdness happening with this West Ham dominance out of nowhere. All of a sudden, they're a good side. But
they got rid of their carbs in the midfield, so they got rid of the rice that they didn't need to have anymore as well.
Boys ball in full flow.
Exactly. David Moyes is a killer now. He's got all the players he needs. Alvarez had a really good debut.
Don't fret.
It's true. Travis doesn't want West Ham to last anyway, so it's all good. But yeah, Travis, last one on Estepinian as well. We talked about Mitoma last week, and we spoke about Estepinian this week as well. And unfortunately, with Brighton, they are looking like a selling club as well. But do you reckon it could be one of these moments where you can see Estepinian staying at this club for a couple more seasons, as opposed to being the next big player to be sold? What do you think about that, Travis?
Maybe just because he's not quite as, shall we say, fashionable as a Cucurella or a Caicedo. He just sort of gets the job done and performs every week. And I think the other thing that will help Brighton in a way in trying to keep him is they only tend to sell one big name per season. And I think they've probably got the next couple of seasons of big name sales already lined up. I think Mitoma, if he keeps playing the way he did last season and into this season, will probably be off onto a big move in the summer. And then it seems like Evan Ferguson's going to be the next one. And if they are only selling, one big player per summer, then you'd like to think Estepinian will be there for at least another couple of years. So I could see him staying a bit longer than like a Caicedo or a McAllister, but time will tell.
Yeah, because originally they didn't want to sell Moises Caicedo, but when you got £105 million knocking at your door for a player who's only been with you a year, 2 seasons, 2 seasons or so,
the profit they made on him as well. It was next to
more.
Nothing they spent on him, wasn't it? It's just, they're such a well-run club. I mean, I think everyone in world football would like to see their club run the way Brighton's run. But I think he'll probably be there for at least a couple more years.
Nicely done, everyone. And the second player we're talking about this week is Eddie Nketiah from Arsenal. So Eddie Nketiah,
we have to.
We do have to. We're talking about Arsenal players all day today. It's insane. Odegaard, Nketiah, they're on our matchday preview later as well. So it's a very Arsenal-centered podcast, unfortunately. But yeah, Eddie Nketiah scored 2 goals in 3 games so far this Premier League season. We're basically talking about him because breaking news as of today, USA international Florian Balogun has moved to Monaco for £34 million. So he's actually left Arsenal Football Club, and with Gabriel Jesus injured as well. Sarah, it's looking like Eddie Nketiah is going to be the man that Arsenal will be relying to score their goals as a number 9 this season. And have you seen much of Nketiah so far? Are you impressed with what you've seen? What's your thoughts on Nketiah, Sarah?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was out here thinking Kai Havertz was going to come out of nowhere and just
it's not happening.
That was incorrect. That was incorrect of
me.
And
I hoped he would do well because I was a fan of him at Bayern Leverkusen, but it's just not happening. No one likes Kai Havertz in this 9 position. I don't know where he's going to fit in with Arsenal, unfortunately.
Yeah, so it's not working out well. But yeah, because of Jesus being injured, Eddie Nketiah is playing up front there, and he's starting the season off well. I'm actually shocked. He's doing really well, but I'm almost certain that Gabby Jesus will be back for the match this weekend. So that's going to be interesting because he'll probably slot back in at the top. Gabby Martinelli is going to be back. Like, it's more about Eddie Nketiah has a ton of opportunity to prove himself and continue to play well, but it's a matter of whether he's going to be getting that playing time with the players that he's playing alongside, because you're not going to start him over Gabby Jesus. You're just not, right? So I think
it could happen with a good run of form, because it happened last season. And then when his form dropped off, it was Mikel Arteta's easiest decision of the season. Bring back Jesus in, Nketiah goes to the bench. The quality from Jesus to Nketiah was like that, but the form from Nketiah was like that. But when his form went down, Nketiah had to drop out, and then Jesus has to come back in.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think he'll still get the start because he's had a great couple of games to start the season, and, Arteta has to show faith in that. So we might see like a later, sub in the second for Gabby Jesus to come in, but depends how he does too, right? If he just comes out of nowhere and starts smashing in goals, it's going to be tough for Nketiah to get on the pitch.
Absolutely. And Travis, earlier we spoke about living up to the name or the number of a certain player at a certain club, and Eddie Nketiah has the burden of carrying the number 14 shirt on the back. So previous players such as Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Theo Walcott, and the legendary Thierry Henry have all worn the number 14 shirt, and we've seen good glimpses of form from Aubameyang and Walcott respectively. Being a Spurs fan, you will have to admit they've had really good goal-scoring seasons. Can we see Eddie Nketiah breaking that 15-20 goal season for this season coming ahead? Because I personally don't think so. I think, like Sara said, with Gabriel Jesus looking to come back in, being the mainstay, and with their Champions League campaign that they've got to deal with, it's going to be quite difficult for Eddie Nketiah to get that consistent run of games. But I wanted to know your thoughts on Eddie Nketiah and where do you think he's going to rank in terms of goal scorer in the season?
I do think that if he got a full season as Arsenal's go-to guy up front, playing the number 9 week in, week out, I do think he probably would hit 15 to 20 goals. If you look at his stats when actually starting, he is really impressive in terms of that sort of that goal ratio. When he starts, he does tend to score pretty much every game that he plays for Arsenal. I think I totally 100% agree with Sara in that when Jesus is fit, he will start. And I think if I was in Nketiah, I think I'd want to leave personally. He obviously had a chance in the summer. I think his contract was running out and he decided to re-sign. Obviously wants to make it work at his boyhood club. That's fair enough. But I think he's shown over the last 12 months that if he gets started for them, he will score goals. He just clearly doesn't have the real trust or the backing from Arteta to go and be that guy. Because, yeah, like you said, as soon as he had a couple of off games last season, Jesus was straight back in starting again. So for me, if I was in Nketiah, I'd probably want to go somewhere, I don't know, somewhere like Palace or something like that, where he could play every game. He's going to 100% going to be the starting number 9 when he's fit, and he can get a real run and score some goals and, show Arsenal why he should have been that guy for them. But yeah, he's had a great start, couple of goals already this season. He scored against Fulham at the weekend. I saw a few bits from that game and the goal was really well taken. I think one of the commentators likened it to a goal that Ian Wright would have scored, and I absolutely agree. It was a very similar sort of movement to what you used to see from Ian Wright back in the day. I think he's a decent player. I think if he gets a run, he'll score 10, 15, 20 goals. But like Sara says, if Gabby Jesus is fit, he's going to start, isn't he? So it's a difficult one for Nketiah.
Yeah, it is. I'm expecting big things from Eddie Nketiah this season. I'm expecting him to take the games from the scruff of the neck to become more of a clutch player, because last season scoring that last-minute winner at the Emirates against Manchester United to win 3-2, that was a big clutch moment for Eddie Nketiah to come forward for Arsenal, become a local hero, like a cult hero for Arsenal that we have seen with some of their younger players, their Smith Rowes, their Bukayo Sakas in previous seasons have become mainstays in this team. And I think Eddie Nketiah is the next one to kind of force his way in. Ideally, if he doesn't want to stay in the Premier League, working abroad would be so much fun. I'd love to see him at somewhere like Juventus. That'd be great for his development. Him and Vlahovic up front would be a crazy working relationship, I would say. But again, that's just me theorizing it and not just taking it from FIFA career mode, as I saw once upon a time as well. But I'm looking forward to seeing Eddie Nketiah, just not against Manchester United, which is one of our 3 match day previews. And Sara, you're in your element here with previewing 3 different games from 3 different leagues. And I'm going to ask you first about Arsenal and Manchester United. Where do you see this game going? And we've got a couple of key battles that we'll be talking about as well, in terms of Mikel Arteta versus Erik ten Hag, in terms of Bukayo Saka versus potentially Diogo Dalot, who will be our inverted left back, and potentially even a midfield battle of Bruno Fernandes versus Declan Rice. So I wanted to know your initial thoughts on the game, and where do you see this game being won or lost from your point of view?
You think Arsenal at the Emirates, they can't lose this, right? But there's something inside of me, and I hate it, that is saying, is Manchester United going to pull something out of the bag here? They have not been good this season. Don't get me wrong. In fact, I had Forest tying against Man U last weekend, and they should have. I was fuming about that. But
they let you down.
They did. Come on, Steve. But crazy. No, truly, like they've not been good. But Arsenal also haven't started really rolling the ball as well. So, I mean, when I look at these two teams, Arsenal's a better team. Arsenal's at home here. They should win. But there is something inside of me that when you have two, the big 6 in the Prem, when they go at each other, I feel like you cannot predict this stuff unless it's Manchester City, because they are absolutely just savages. But you know what I mean? I think this game it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a lot in the midfield. So when you say Declan Rice and Bruno Fernandes, that is going to be an interesting matchup, because Declan Rice has been fantastic so far since joining Arsenal. I mean, he was fantastic beforehand, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I can't put my finger on this one, and I've been thinking about it all week.
I'm not confident in this game because Manchester United's home form is amazing. Our away form is atrocious. We have let down ourselves so much. And like Travis said earlier in the podcast, Bruno Fernandes missed an absolute sitter, an easy chance at 0-0 when we played away from home. And we just didn't recover because we conceded our first goal in that game against Tottenham, against a really good side as well. And they outplayed us in the second half, but we had opportunities that we really should have scored, but we squandered. I've talked about how Antony might be our right winger for the weekend ahead, and I'm not confident in him against rather Zinchenko, or I don't know who their left back will be, Tomiyasu maybe with their inverted left back. But before I get on to my full preview of it, Travis, let's hear your thoughts on how Manchester United could find a point or could find 3 points against this very settled Arsenal side. And I know for you as a Spurs fan, you won't want to talk about Arsenal, so I'll do that bit after Sara's done it as well. But talk to me about Man United and where can Manchester United threaten this Arsenal side from your point of view?
Yeah, firstly, I do agree with Sara in that I think it is a tough one to call. You look at the way United they've started the season, a lot of people have made comments about the way that they've played, the way that the midfield's been exploited, and they just look far too open. But to be honest with you, you said just against a very settled Arsenal side. I don't see this as a very settled Arsenal side. I did last season. I think last season you could put your mortgage on Arsenal starting 11 every weekend that you were 99% certain to be right.
Not with the way it's going in Canada. That crazy interest is insane in Canada right now. I'm worried for you, Sara. I can't lie. I'm so sorry about that, but it's very worrying with the interest rates there. But no, carry on, Travis.
Yeah, but yeah, this season it's been very different. They've tried obviously Partey at right back and Tomiyasu played a couple of different positions. There seems to be a reason why Mikel Arteta doesn't want to pick Gabriel, and no one seems to know the reason, even though he was one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League last season. For me, there seems to be issues there. Havertz has come in and not really been performing, and there's a question over who starts up front between Nketiah and Jesus, like we mentioned. I think if Arteta doesn't get the starting 11 right, it could be a tough game for them. I think, like you mentioned, Sara, it's so tough to predict games between the top six. And I think especially Man United, because under Ten Hag, it seems like when they've hit a poor run, they've then had a game against a big club and managed to pull a result out of the bag. I think back to the start of last season where they lost against Brighton, lost against Brentford, both quite embarrassing results, played Liverpool, and everybody thought they were going to get steamrolled. And they pulled a win out of nowhere. And I could see that happening this weekend because Arsenal have won 2 games and drawn 1. They're obviously unbeaten so far, but they haven't been convincing. If you watch the games that they've played, I don't want to say they've been lucky because obviously you create your own luck in football a lot of the time. But I think if they'd have played tougher teams than Fulham, Palace, and Nottingham Forest, I think they'd have a lot less to show for this season. I think it's not going to be as cut and dry as people will think it's going to be this weekend.
Yeah, Sara, this is what Travis does sometimes. He builds us up to then tear us down and be like, I told you Man United could have won this game, but they didn't. It's true, though, but we are facing an injury crisis at Manchester United. There is no actual left back. We've got Rafael Varane out for 6 weeks as well. That was confirmed today. So it's going to look like Lindelof and Martinez at centre-back. And our defence is looking very, very shaky without having an established left back. No Mason Mount as well. McTominay looks like he could be on his way out before deadline day. So it's quite worrying to see how this Manchester United side is kind of looking at its best, even though our best hasn't improved since last season. And like Travis said, we have kind of fought back in some of these big games against big teams, but they've been home games. Manchester City winning 2-1, Liverpool winning 2-1. We've seen us beat Arsenal 3-1 at home as well after an embarrassing defeat in the Europa League against Real Sociedad. But it goes to show that we really need to have a mental edge on this game because we haven't beaten Arsenal for quite a while at the Emirates. It's quite worrying to really see how far Manchester United need to go to get an away win. And I think the biggest team we faced last season that we got an away win, I believe, was Aston Villa. No, it wasn't. Aston Villa, we lost to as well. I can't even remember the biggest team we lost to because we lost against the top 9, or we drew against everyone in the top 9 of last season. And that's the worrying thing for me as a Manchester United fan. I identify Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka as our key players for this game. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is going to have a tough time, especially if Gabriel Martinelli is back in or if Trossard continues to start for Arsenal. But realistically speaking, we're going to have to play some clutch football like we have done. And Marcus Rashford is someone who brings out the fire for us quite a lot of times when we're down in the dumps, and he'll bring a goal out of nowhere. Scored an amazing goal last season at the Emirates, but I'm really worried about how Manchester United can let this game slip away from us if we have another repeat against Tottenham. My score prediction for the game is Arsenal 3, Manchester United 1. Sara, what's your score prediction for the game?
Not that many. Let's go 2-1 Arsenal. I have to take them at the Emirates. Please.
Travis, agree or disagree? Arsenal win, clean sweep, what are we saying?
Oh, I really, really don't know. I could see it going.
You said you hated Bruno Fernandes more than Arsenal, so let's see if you are going to back that or not today.
Yeah.
Could it be a draw, guys? Could it be a draw?
It could be. The worst thing is Man United fans would love a draw. If you gave us a draw now, we'd love it, but it's going to be very worrying to see how it ends.
I do think it'll be a low scoring game because I think that I could make myself look like a fool here if it ends up 5-4 or something stupid like that. But I think if United don't have Varane and they don't have a left back, they are surely going to have to put somebody else in midfield alongside Casemiro. They're surely going to have to start McTominay and just be a little bit more rigid and a bit more solid in midfield. And I think that Arsenal might try and do the same thing because they've not hit a settled back four yet this season. So I do think it'll be a low scorer, but I'm going to put my neck on the line here. I'm going 1-0 Man United.
Ooh.
Rashford.
See, Sarah, this is what I'm telling you. On Sunday evening when we lose 5-4, Travis would be like, I told you could have won. But you didn't.
I'm just protecting myself by saying it could go either way.
It could go either way. Don't worry. I'll clip it when it goes 5-4 to Arsenal, which will be good fun. But no, that's match day 1 of 3 that we're talking about for this week. And match day 2, or the second game we're talking about, we're off to Italy and we're off to a top of the table clash in Serie A. And last season's champions, Napoli, are facing off against last season's runners-up, Lazio. And I'm really looking forward to this because even though at the beginning of the podcast I mentioned Rudy Garcia, the reason I mentioned him is because he's the Napoli coach for this season after replacing Spalletti after he left in the summer. Kim Min-jae was also a big miss going to Bayern Munich as well. But Napoli are looking on good form. Kuvica Kvaratskhelia returned from injury, and Napoli had another convincing win on the weekend. Lazio have signed in Daichi Kamada as one of their new marquee players after Sergio Milinkovic-Savic has left for Saudi Arabia. And Sara, I'm going to have to go to you on Napoli for this one as well. Can you see anyone in Italy, anyone at all, stopping Victor Osimhen and Kuvica Kvaratskhelia this season?
Not right now. I mean, listen, maybe a Milan. They're looking really nice right now. Christian Pulisic is coming into that squad and just slotted himself right in. But we knew Milan were really capable. I mean, Theo Hernandez in the back is a monster. So I'll be looking at them, but I don't think it'll be Lazio. Unfortunately for them, 2 matches, 2 losses. They lost to Lecce, which was really unlucky. And I think we all know that. It wasn't their best match, but I don't think they deserved a loss there. But then they lost to Genoa. Now you're taking on the Serie A champions. Unfortunately for the Roman side, I don't see this going any way than for Napoli. And it's also at the Stadio de Diego Armando Maradona. So we know what that means.
Yeah,
this one
a cauldron.
Yeah, it is. And like you've mentioned, Kvara is back. I do like Daichi Kamada, though, going to Lazio because he's brilliant. And I think, this is just going to show his strength from going from Frankfurt. Now he's going to be in Serie A. Like it's a different ball game, but we'll see how he fends there because I think he's a very talented young man, but I don't think it'll be enough for Lazio. I'm going for a Napoli win. I'm seeing like a 2-0 here.
Yeah, something simple as well. And Travis, we've spoken glowingly about Kuvica Kvaratskhelia last season, but this season I want to talk to you a bit more about Victor Osimhen. And Victor Osimhen was the striker who had his best ever season last season, leading Napoli to their first Scudetto in 33 years. And I really wanted to ask you, can he outscore himself from last season, scoring 26 goals for Napoli? Can he take them further in the Champions League? And can he retain Serie A for Napoli as well. What's your thoughts on Victor Osimhen so far, Travis?
He's class, isn't he? What can you say about him that we haven't said, 100 times last season? Every convincing Napoli win, every Osimhen goal, we're sort of eulogized over him many times. I do think he'll struggle to outscore himself. It was obviously a very, very strong output last season, and you don't see too many players in any league really, but especially in Serie A scoring 26 or more goals in a season. Doesn't happen too often. I think they'll do well to retain the title. Sara mentioned Milan seem to have improved massively. I think they have transitioned a little bit, had a few players leave, a few players come in, like we spoke about last week, but they seem to have done it really well. The players that have come in seem to be performing straight away and fitting into the system. I do think Napoli will win this weekend. I don't think Lazio are going to have enough. And I think it'll be interesting to see how Napoli do get on this season, because in Italy over the last few years, really since that sort of stranglehold that Juve had on the title has been broken, I think most of the title winners we've seen in Serie A over the last couple of years have had a little bit of a transitional season the next season. So Inter won it a few years ago and then lost it to Milan the next season. Milan obviously won it the season before last and then finished fourth last season. So it'll be interesting to see if Napoli can buck that trend a little bit and retain it. But I think they've got a good chance.
Yeah, I disagree with you on that one. I think Victor Osimhen will outscore himself from last season. I think he will have a lot more attacking play under Rudy Garcia. And I think now Serie A will fear him. His game will go up as well. And
Do we have a bet on it?
I can't bet. We'll have
a wager.
We'll have a wager. A wager is if Victor Osimhen outscores himself from last season, and I'm saying this on the podcast as well because Sara's here as well. She's witness and she can take part in the wager as well. I will buy both of you a classic football shirt if he doesn't outscore himself. So if he does score more than 26 goals, I don't have to buy you anything. So we call it's a one-way bet, Sara, because I'm not allowed to bet both ways. But if he doesn't score more than 26 goals, barring injury, or like a crazy suspension.
Yeah, where he does his ACL this weekend.
Don't say it.
We don't see him at all for the rest of the season. No more 26 goals. But yeah, I definitely think he's going to score more than 26 goals. I'm putting a wager down. If he doesn't score more than that, I will buy both Sara and Travis a football kit. Sorry, listeners, but sometimes you don't really take part in our social media challenges. So I'm giving it to our co-host today. So sorry, you just potentially won yourself or lost yourself
I know, but
football kit.
Do you know what? I actually hope I don't, because I hope Victor Osimhen does break.
Oh, you're with me. Are you with me on this one?
I want him to. I don't know if he will. I don't know if he will. That is very difficult to do.
Is that a better idea then? If he doesn't, I get a shirt. If he does, Sara gets one.
Yeah, that's a better one.
Perfect. Okay, I'm into that. I'll be happy. I'll be happy about that one.
Remind me in June. Well, remind me in June about this one as well.
I'll set a reminder on my phone for the last day.
Yeah, right now in the calendar.
I'll start saving in my bank account. I'll leave like a fund there, like a football shirt fund as well. This is great fun. But yeah, Victor Osimhen is a firecracker of a football player. I've loved watching him for Napoli, especially in the Champions League. And one thing that I really loved about this summer is when he went back to Nigeria and he played an amazing game of just pick up football with his old friends as well. And he had that viral video go around of him just taking a free kick and it just went, and then his friend was like, oh my God, that's insane. He also said F in hell, but I won't say that on the podcast. But that was so funny as well. And that's what I like about a lot of African players. When they go home for their pre-season, they won't go to like party or stuff. They'll go home to their roots. They'll see their friends. They'll share some of their time with people as well. And I think that was great from Victor Osimhen as well. So shout out to him. And I really hope he does well. Unless he faces Man United in the Champions League, then definitely not. But besides that, Victor Osimhen, let's see if you can score more. Travis and Sara will be waiting for you in June, which will be good fun. And our final game to talk about this week, we are going all the way. Oh, you'll like this one, Sara. We're going to France. And we're talking about Lyon versus PSG. The former biggest team in France versus the current biggest team in France. Kylian Mbappe, we're obviously starting there. I mean, come on now. We spoke about Bellingham earlier, Barcelona earlier. Kylian Mbappe, Sara, talk to me. Has he made a mistake staying at PSG for one more season, or do you think this is a big power play from himself, getting in Ousmane Dembele, getting rid of Neymar to Saudi Arabia, getting rid of, obviously, Lionel Messi as well to Inter Miami? What's your thoughts on Kylian Mbappe's antics this summer, Sara?
Kylian Mbappe made a mistake 2 years ago when he didn't go to Real Madrid. This has been an ongoing issue he's had. And you can say, yeah, he's gotten rid of all these players so he can now be the big superstar. Yeah, good luck winning without some of these players. You guys can say whatever you want about Lionel Messi, but he still had 15 goals, Liga goals last season, and I think over 15 assists. So yeah, you're losing him. Neymar, as much as he's injury prone, when he plays, he's absolutely fantastic. So I don't know what Kylian Mbappe is doing. Every time it's a transfer window, though, I'm always nervous. I'm on my toes because we still have just under 48 hours, guys. He could go. We don't know because it's Mbappe. He loves to just keep us on our toes. But I mean, this game has lost so much meaning to me with the way that he's kind of behaved. I don't really like the way he's going about it. And he's such a attention seeker, it seems. And Lyon, unfortunately, this year has been miserable. So this game is going to be at home for them, the Groupama Stadium. But I mean, if Mbappe starts, it's going to be PSG, right?
Yeah. You got Asensio, who started well for them. We've got Ousmane Dembele coming off the bench in his debut for PSG as well. Travis, I wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on PSG this season as well. We've heard Sara's thoughts on Mbappe, but I wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on, realistically speaking, their golden era has ended, but their golden era wasn't really with Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe. It was almost with Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Cavani a couple of years ago as well. We thought we were going to see bigger and better, but the more superstars they tried to cram into this side, the more their superstars would diminish. And it looks like Kylian Mbappe has had to put the reset button in this attack. But can you see a way forward for PSG, or are they just going to be another round of 16 in the Champions League and a Ligue 1 win this season? What's your thoughts, Travis?
Again, I might make myself look a bit silly here, but I do think that.
Can I win a shirt from you this time? What?
Yeah, I tell you what, that's a good idea. I do think there's a good chance that PSG have one of their best seasons in the next couple of years. Not necessarily this season, but in the next couple of years. I think, like you said, primarily since they've had this influx of money from the foreign ownership, they've tried to, like you say, cram superstars into the team. You know, Messi, Zlatan, players like this. And it's not really worked. It's never worked. But
reminds me of the Expendable films when they've got like Sylvester Stallone, Bruce Willis, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they're just not cramming it together into a good film, which is insane.
all the old geezers running it back.
Literally.
But yeah, looking at their squad this season, they've made a few signings that I'm really impressed with. Milan Skriniar is a great pickup. They've signed obviously Manu Ugarte as well. Couple of
fantastic ball playing midfielder, fantastic player to watch.
Yeah, they've picked up Ramos from Benfica as well, haven't they? I think
loan with an obligation to buy as well.
Ousmane Dembele from Sara's team, obviously another one. So I think they've changed their strategy a little bit this season in going for players that aren't necessarily superstars, but they could make superstars. And I'm going to say here, I think they get at least the Champions League semi-final this season.
Ooh.
Are you sure?
I'm going strong on this one. I'm being brave. I think if you look at the other teams in Europe, City will obviously be unbelievable again. Real Madrid will obviously be unbelievable. I don't see that many other fantastically strong teams at the minute, other than Real Madrid and Man City.
Bayern Munich, Harry Kane. Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not convinced by Bayern. I'm really not. Again, I could be made to look a fool here, and obviously Kane's going to score a lot of goals, but. You know, like I can give him the stick now that he always got when he was at Tottenham. He doesn't play well in the big games. So when the Champions League comes around and he's absolutely ghosting against all the biggest teams in Europe, that could be to PSG's benefit. I think they'll do all right this season. I think now they've moved past this sort of Galactico approach that they were going for. I mean, if you watch games last season with the front three of Messi, Mbappe and Neymar, you'd see them lose the ball. You'd see the whole team track back, except from the front three. And you just create this huge divide in midfield where you've got this front line of Mbappe, Neymar, and Messi. And then, 50 yards. And then the rest of the team, it was wild. And I think if they have a full collective unit of a squad now, even if Mbappe does go next summer, I think moving forward, they're going to have a bit more success and a bit more chance of winning those big titles. Because you look at Man City, for example, they've had that influx of money. they haven't done it the Galactico superstar way, the way that PSG have tried to do it. They've built a team, obviously, admittedly, with probably the greatest manager of all time. It does help. But they've built a team in a different way that PSG have tried to do it. But yeah, they're going more towards that now, and I think they will have a good season. So I'm happy to.
I'll agree with you, though, in that sense, what you're saying about building a team and not just bringing in a bunch of superstars, because, yeah, it had never worked for PSG. Yeah. And I do think that had been an ongoing issue. Now, that being said, do I think they're going to make the Champions League semifinals? Absolutely not. No way. Maybe in a few years, because you're onto something here. I think it could be something where it grows, where you work with these players that you've signed now, the Gonzalo Ramoses, the Dembeles, whomever. And over the years, you give them more confidence. They learn how to play with one another, because that's how football is played. You can't just bring in a bunch of, brilliant players and be like, well, get it together. You have to have an understanding with each other. You have to build a team, right? Which is something they never did. So I will give you that, but I do not think that they will be in the Champions League semifinal. And what will you do if Harry Kane wins 3 trophies this year?
Ooh.
I don't know. I'll probably start watching cricket or something. It'd be one of the most depressing things. Look, I'd be happy if he does. Like, if Bayern win, I mean, the league is obviously a non-starter, isn't it? Obviously, he's going to win that. But if Bayern do win the Champions League, I probably will be happy for him, as much as it will be painful to watch, because the whole reason he's left Tottenham, which is a really difficult decision for him, is to go and win these big trophies and actually even have a chance of winning them, which he obviously never really had at Tottenham. So if he does,
it's because he didn't perform in the big games, Travis.
Yeah, exactly. It's because he's
Champions League final, FA Cup final, League Cup final. Just do it.
I won't blame him for that Champions League final, because that was Poch's fault. He never should have played. He was coming back off an injury, wasn't fit. We had Lucas Moura just scored a hat-trick in the semi-final against Ajax and got benched. It was completely the wrong decision. But yeah, if he does win it, I will be happy for him, because it'll justify that decision. Whereas I think it will be a real shame if he does retire or leave Bayern or whatever in a few years, and he doesn't have anything to show for that decision to leave.
My one redeeming factor in the PSG game is the fact they have a great architect at the helm now in Luis Enrique.
Great manager.
So will back me up on this one as
Champions League pedigree as well. Champions League for the semi-final, Champions League pedigree.
That's fair.
I'm pretty sure Luis Enrique came into Barcelona in his first tenure as manager. Was it his second season that he won the Champions League with you, Sara? Was that correct, or did he not win?
When they won the treble.
They won the treble, didn't they? Yeah, I was going to say that front three.
That was 2013, 2014.
2014, 2015.
That would be
his second season.
Yeah.
So the stars could align for PSG, but again, just to finish off on our PSG Lyon topic, I definitely think PSG will win. And unfortunately, with Lyon, one of their younger players, Barcola, is looking like he's going to be signed by PSG before their game on the weekend. So watch this space. We could see a Lyon player move to PSG on deadline day as well. But just to finish off on the PSG Lyon topic, Sara, talk to us about Luis Enrique and how this could be his redeeming factor coming back into full-time management and looking to get one of these sleeping giants in European football back up there, not just for French football, but for European football in general.
Yeah, I mean, as you've mentioned, like, he knows how to play Champions League style football, tournament style football. He's used to it. He's used to playing frequent games. I mean, having his players play frequently as well. I think it's just a matter of there are a bunch of really talented young players on this team, but also many are new to the team. So how is that going to work, and finding what fits, and also just sorting out this Mbappe drama? Like, the next 2 days, I'm sure, probably madness for him, but just trying to come to, an agreement, because we saw Mbappe wasn't even on the squad list for their first game against Lorient. If he's there, you have to play him. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is just common sense. So, but he has the pedigree and he has the ability to bring the best out of players. He's done that at Barcelona. He can do that at PSG. Is it going to be on the same caliber? No, I don't think so, because that Barcelona team was better.
And he worked with big egos and big players who had won it all as well.
Yeah, and that's what you see at PSG a lot of the time. So I do think it's possible. I think maybe not this season, but next season or the season after, if he's still there, because we know the way PSG treat their managers. But I think it could be something that they really grow well together, but it needs time, like anything.
Yeah. Like anything, like Manchester United for 10 years, as I always say, but that will take longer than I need it to be. Pain is real, but I'm not looking forward to Sunday at all, or to next week's podcast when Arsenal have beaten Man United 5-4, thanks to Travis manifesting it into existence, which is crazy. But no, that's been our match day preview, and that's been our podcast, which has been an excellent podcast. And it goes to show, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, when I've got two amazing people to talk football with, Sara and Travis, it goes to show we can have good conversations. And these good conversations may result in me buying a football kit for one of our two co-hosts today, which I'm not looking forward to, but I'll get Travis back later in the season with one of his wages, and I'll get Sara back in the season later on as well, which would be great. But
well, I might owe you one now if PSG flop by the looks of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's easier said than done, but we're going to have to wait until June for this as well, which will be great. But Sara, just before we wrap up the podcast, I want to say thank you very much for your time. We love seeing your great work on our social media pages, and your YouTube videos are absolutely incredible. Looking forward to working with you over the season as it continues. Why don't you tell our audiences where people can find you once again after featuring on our podcast, on our YouTube, and on our short form content, and what you've got going on in Canada right now?
Yeah, I mean, always with Friday Night Counterattack, I'll be on their socials at Twitter, which is where I'm mostly active, at Sara Poraria, SaraPoraria.
Oh, for goodness sake. I kept saying Sara instead of Sarah. My bad.
No. That's how it's said. That's how my family says it. It's the Canadians that can't do it. Please continue. You're doing it right. It's just
that's
natural. I'm used to saying it. Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm not really as frequently on it, so just find me on Twitter. What's going on in Canada? I mean, tomorrow, guys, we have the Champions League day draw. We're doing a massive reaction video there with Room 442. I'm super excited. I'm super nervous, but one thing I know is that Barcelona cannot be in Bayern Munich's group. So happy days for us over here.
Wait, why not? Are you both in pot one?
We both won the league.
Yeah, that's fine. So it's you, Man City, PSG. You're avoiding Napoli as well. I was going to say Napoli would have been a good one to see.
Yeah, we're going to get Inter for the 700th time. Don't fret.
That's fine. I've got my flights to Milan booked already. The annual trip to Milan is coming back again, which will be good fun. No, it's not. We're going to play Barcelona and we're going to lose. We're going to lose to Barcelona. But no, I'm looking forward to more of your amazing work with Room 442 and obviously with Friday Night Counterattack as well. Big things coming for Sara this season. And Travis, have I been pronouncing your name correctly as well, just before we end the podcast?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, mate. But yeah, you've smashed it, to be fair. It's taken, 8 months of working with me to get it bang on. But yeah, you've smashed it.
I appreciate it. It's all good. And best of luck with your new board of directors role. This is big news for you. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you can elevate this club going forward. I'm going to be asking you every week about it as well, which will be great. But yeah, now it's off to London for me for a big meeting with big football producers tomorrow. Wish me luck, everyone. Everyone, thank you very much for your time. Everyone listening, thank you as always. Do follow us on our social medias as you normally do and get involved. Like I said, when you're missing out on these little awards that we have and these little competitions we have, I just have to offer it to our co-hosts, and that's what's happened this time. So stay in touch with us and we'll offer you some free gifts. But if not, Sara or Travis will take it off your hands gladly, I would say, which is good fun. But yeah, everyone, thank you very much for your time. God bless. Take care. See you later.